Hello everyone, welcome back to Touch the Fire Twice. I'm Joshua, and I'm here today to do an in-depth sniff and comparison candle review, as well as a brand introduction to a new-to-me brand called Flamingo Estate. I discovered them a few weeks back. I believe it was some article I read, I think maybe an Architectural Digest or Instagram, where I first heard about them, where they basically say, their tagline is "Pleasure from the Garden, Mother Nature's most precious gifts, from our garden to yours." And so I did some research on the brand, find them very interesting, beautiful visuals, really interesting products, and a really, I think, unique mission that is very kind of timely for where we are now in the world. So I do have an 8-ounce Roma Heirloom Tomato candle here to do a review on. I'll show you the unboxing. I have burned this, so I have my in-depth sniff comparison review, as well as 2 candles that some of you may be familiar with from back in the day with Slatkin & Co. and Bath & Body Works to compare it to. But as I've done in the past with other brand introductions, when I'm sniffing a new candle or a new product, I really like to learn a little bit about the brand history, who they are, what they stand for. So I've done those videos for LAFCO, I've done that for Boy Smells, for PF Candle Company, Nest, obviously Homeworks, the big ones I've done in the past, but also now for Flamingo Estate. So I'm gonna read you some of the things. This is kind of pulled straight from some of their branding from their website, show you some of their branding imagery here, really interesting. I did purchase this. This was not received, gifted, or as PR. I did purchase this with my own money. But I just like to talk about what a brand stands for and who they are, especially when it is a higher end purchase like this candle. So again, they say a place to bathe, eat, and bask in nature's most precious ingredients. The history, so this is actually based on an estate in Los Angeles. And they say in the early 1940s, a determined pair of young renegades arrived in California to realize their vision of an earthly paradise. High atop the hills of Los Angeles, hidden by a lush orchard and dense gardens, the Flamingo Pink Estate became a hedonistic enclave of sun worship, folk mythologies, and psychedelic remedies, a secret haven for wild alchemy in the city of angels. Now Flamingo Estate is the home of Richard Christensen, and in the spirit of its origins, a radical celebration of pleasure from the garden, we carefully cultivate Mother Nature's wildest, most precious gifts at a time when we need them most. So Richard Christensen purchased the estate. He was a successful creative director in New York, I believe. You know, a friend of a friend, a neighbor, a friend of a neighbor, learned about the estate and he fell in love with it and ended up purchasing it from a very unique older woman, from what the story states. The promise of the brand, they say they believe that pleasure is a human right, that to stand on the earth and sing her praises is one of the most joyful and necessary privileges of being alive. Flamingo Estate was founded on the idea that in a world that profits off our numbness, it is a radical act to wake up our senses, to relish the slow dive, the deep breath, the bee asleep in the mallow, the drizzle of olive oil on a soft boiled egg. These are the moments that foster joy. This is pleasure from the garden. Love that. And then finally they say we are the ardent dreamers fighting to preserve the natural world with green thumbs and middle fingers. So that's kind of cool. They've got a very realistic based edge to them. They sell so many products. Think of, honestly, a farmer's market, a high-end farmer's market or farm. Anything you might find there, they have. So they have honey, candles, olive oil, vinegars, tea, jams, wine, cookbooks, flowers, vegetables, seeds, literal bags of manure, soap, body wash, really anything you can think of. They have a strong community with lifestyle blogs and things like that. How to best just, again, experience the luxury of what the earth can bring to us, these kind of simple but luxurious products. So really interesting. I think it's a great angle and I'm into it. And they actually, again, literally you can purchase like farmers market vegetables, I think more locally, but they literally sell kind of heirloom boxes of farmers market vegetables, similar to like CSAs and things like that. As far as candles, right now I believe they only have 4 or 5 candle scents. Of course, the Roma Heirloom Tomato, which I'll get into. And then they also have an Adriatic Muscatel Sage, Climbing Tuscan Rosemary, Narcissus Flower, and then newly released Australian Sandalwood and White Paperbark. So first, I will just say a couple things here. 100% vegetable wax, a 60-hour burn. And they say they're a proud member of 1% for the planet. They never test on animals. Made by Flamingo Estate in sunny Los Angeles, made in the USA. And they plant 1 tree for every product they sell. Hand poured with love. So you can see here the very simple box design, Roma Heirloom Tomato with their logo. And I'll read the description on the side as well before I get into it, because there are not numerous scent notes. It really is a sort of one note candle as far as what they share with us, but obviously there's a lot going on within it. And so it says, ripe, supple, and bursting with juice, the scent of the heirloom tomato catapults us to memories of summer dinner parties in Sicilian gardens. This candle, a monument to the love apple, is made from 100% vegetable wax and hand-poured into sturdy, reusable containers. Light with a match and enjoy for a long time, our candles burn for over 60 hours. And then again, this says that burning desire, the history of the estate. So the box here, do the unboxing. It's a very simple box, but a cute design. So some photos here, some like vintage, or what appear to be vintage photos, some stills there from, again, the hedonistic Flamingo Estate of the past, of yore. Pull out the candle here, wrapped, and then the photos continue down into the box. And this is sort of like a false bottom there, just to protect it from falling out. But again, kind of along the lines of boy smells, just like a little bit of that edge to it, the pleasure edge, and I'm into it. Here we go into the candle. So it reminds me somewhat of those candles you sometimes will see that are like the cut-off bottom of a wine bottle. Very similar to that, though it's actually, they're not repurposed wine bottles from my understanding. They do seem thicker than what that would be if they were. Just says very cleanly on here, Roma Heirloom Tomato, single note, 8 ounces with a paper label. And then it just has a very simple dust cover there, which I will drop off. This is, again, they say a vegetable wax. I believe it must be, if not 100% soy, very close to 100% soy, just based on, as you can see from my post burn here, I did one burn for maybe 3 hours. It is that very mottled, soft wax. It does not seem to be a paraffin. I believe it probably is either vegetable blend or potentially 100% or primarily soy. I will say on this, I will get into the scent in a second, but the burn on this was really good. Very clean burn. I did put a little bit of foil around it at one point just to ensure that it would get a full pull because it was a little cool in my home that day. But it did pull out fully. I will also say the throw on this candle, this is an example of what candles I think should, but at least could be. And that is the sense, again, this is an 8-ounce candle, single wick. Not big, not a wide diameter. It's sort of your average, luxury brand 8-ounce candle. This threw better than Homeworks 4-wick candles. This threw better than almost any candle that I could think of that I've ever had. There are other scents that maybe lingered longer or had more complexity to it. There's so many variables to it, but the fact is I had this burning, and again, my home was about 4,000 square feet. I had this burning in my study on the upper level, in the corner, in my kitchen, which is, out around the corner, downstairs into my open concept kitchen and great room. I had a Slatkin & Co. Homeworks Farm Stand Strawberry, which has a solid strength scent and a fairly medium-high projection. And this was literally traveling out, down, and taking that over. You would be standing in my kitchen and you could smell this. So the fact that it wasn't just, going up a grand staircase to the loft, it was actually traveling down, really is quite impressive. Now, you might not want all candles to be that strong, but the fact that they could do, a company that's not even primarily a candle company, though they likely work with a third-party expert, would be my guess, to pour these candles and build these wonderful fragrances that they have built. It shows that you can have a good throw and an insanely strong fragrance from a small 8-ounce single wick soy vegetable blend candle. So whenever we think of, oh, well, single wicks don't always work and they're not great throw, if you get the right blend, the right materials, and likely a heavy hit of fragrance oils, it's possible. So again, maybe you don't get that in an $8 candle from Bath & Body Works all the time, but when you're paying $30, $40, $60, $70, $80 for a single wick candle, they could and should do that, because this one really did. And again, the fact that they're not a primary candle company, but were able to deliver this quality of performance is very impressive to me. Getting into what is equally or perhaps most important, the fragrance. This is beautiful. It is, again, sitting here, this is a room fragrance filler when it is sitting here open. It is extremely green. This is not sort of your fresh, juicy, the fruit of the tomato, as much as it really is the tomato vines. There's a bit of a sweetness to it, but more than anything, it is that green, vegetal, sharp, biting, astringent, unmistakable green that you get from tomato vines. I think there probably is a bit of the fruit in there. I would say there's probably even, in addition to just like the vegetal tomato vine, I imagine that this was built, as a top, middle, bottom notes, most likely with a fine fragrance perfumer would be my assumption. I'm thinking maybe some galbanum in there, because that's often going to be, it's a spicy green vegetal blend primarily. I would say there could be a bit of like a lemon rind in here, like a preserved or salted lemon rind. Certainly the deep green, I want to say the galbanum, but it could be literally the tomato vines themselves, where you can almost feel like the little bit of fur that's on there. Perhaps a deep herb of some sort, almost like a cannabis, kind of deep, deep greenness, but with a bit of like a powderiness that sometimes comes from floral. But the first sniff, you're gonna say, oh, this is green, this is tomato vines. You could smell this blind and you'll smell tomato vines for certain. I just love it. It's so strong, it's so fresh, it's so clean. And they say single note, primarily single note. It is tomatoes. It really intrigues me on their sage or their rosemary and their other blends as well. They're not inexpensive. Their retail, I believe, is $50 on these. Sometimes there are, refer a friend, get $20 off kind of deals. There are first time purchaser 15% coupons, but as treating yourself to something that is really, again, a pleasure from the garden, this is gonna do it. And I'm so happy with the performance. Now, a quick comparison, as if you're familiar with TouchTheFireTwice, my typical presentation is I'm gonna do an in-depth sniff comparison review, which means I'm gonna compare this. I could compare it to a cut open tomato, but it really, I don't need to because it smells like tomato vine. But there are two other candles that it's worth comparing to, and that would be Tomato Garden from Bath & Body Works, Slatkin & Co. back in 2012. The notes here were fresh picked ripe cherry tomatoes infused with sweetened black currant with a touch of white musk. Now this, that's beautiful. Honestly, burn these together. This is the fruit of the tomato. So this smells very much like a cherry tomato you pop in your mouth. It's a little bit acidic, but there is that sweetness that can only come from tomatoes. Almost like a not quite dried tomato, but maybe a roasted tomato, where it is just so, the sugars condense and become just grippingly sweet. Lovely. And the white musk, I don't get so much. The black currant, perhaps some of that sweetness comes in. I think some of those notes were just to keep people interested and not scared off by a tomato candle, since this was mass market. Not similar as far as that, because this is the tomato and this really is the tomato with a heavy focus on the vine. And then we get to what was a test scent called Heirloom Greens that I think later came back as Tomato Vine at Bath & Body Works in like 2015, but this was from 2013. And this said, escape to the garden with this cheerful blend of heirloom greens and tomato vines. Now I will tell you, this is tomato vines, but I also get a little bit of like green pepper in this and almost like a jalapeno or a poblano. There's a lot going on in here beyond simply tomato vines, because there are greens with a little bit of herbs, maybe some verbena, but a heavy hit of the tomato vines. So when I first sniffed this, it reminded me of this. And smelling this now, this is softer, I'd say more notes, not quite as, I'd say, intriguing necessarily as this, because this really hits you with really great levels of fragrance oils. I do like this, and they're similar in the sense that this has a tomato vine, 60% of it to it, but there's still 40% of a lot of other things going on. This is your tomato vine, pretty straightforward. But again, I'm still getting a bit of like preserved lemon, some sort of, perhaps some herbs, some verbena in the background. This spicy green, again, I want to say like a galbanum, something a little bit almost resinous because it brings a depth to it. Borderline to like labdanum, which is going to be almost like kind of an ambergris sort of thing. There's a warmth to this beyond just green vines. So I could see both galbanum and labdanum in here, that preserved lemon rind, salted lemon rind, and a bit of just an herbal background, but heavily on those tomato vines, which is exactly what I wanted in the purchase of this. So really highly recommend checking this out. If you love really strong scents and those straightforward and you want tomato vines smelling throughout your home, or even honestly, if you have a patio or garden, if you don't naturally have tomato vines already smelling through your garden, this would be a beautiful strong scent there as well. Highly recommend it. I'm going to be checking out more from Flamingo Estate just in general, their other products as well, if they have quality here. If you can trust their quality in the candle, I think I could trust their quality somewhere else, because this would be something that some brands would just do a throwaway on, just to have the branded merch. And it feels like they put care and attention into this, which makes me believe that they put care and attention into their other products as well. So that is about it for today. Let me know if you've heard of this brand, if you're more intrigued to hear more about them, if you're going to purchase anything, let me know, and I will let you know if I purchase more as well. And until next time, take care.